Ramprasad Sen, India, born 1718 to 1775. Although stories abound in the life of Ramprasad Sen, little exists that would satisfy a strict historian. Ramprasad was born in a small village along the Ganges, just outside of Calcutta in Bengal, India. His father was an Ayurvedic doctor. As a boy, Ramprasad showed himself to be an excellent student and displayed a natural talent for poetry and language. Although he impressed everyone with his intellectual abilities, he showed no interest in taking up the family profession of Ayurveda or any profession, for that matter. His increasing otherworldliness and interest in spiritual practices worried his parents, who were afraid he would renounce the world. To head off that possibility, his parents married their meditative son to a beautiful young girl. Soon after the marriage, Ramprasad's father died, leaving the family in poverty. As the oldest son within a traditional family, the responsibility fell on Ramprasad to provide for the entire family. Despite his bright mind, Ramprasad struggled to find employment. He eventually found a job as an accountant's clerk in nearby Calcutta. But he couldn't prevent his devotional poetry from pouring out. Lacking good paper, he wrote his poems in the margins of his account ledgers. Some of his co-workers noticed this and complained to the manager that Ramprasad was writing poetry rather than keeping the accounts. The manager demanded to see Ramprasad's ledgers. Upon reading Ramprasad's songs to the mother goddess Kali, the manager was so moved that he told Ramprasad to go home and devote all his time to his writing, and he would still draw the same monthly pay. Ramprasad turned deeply to his spiritual practices and poetry, often singing his songs by the banks of the Ganges or immersed, neck-deep in the sacred waters. One day a local prince heard Ramprasad singing songs to Kali. He appointed Ramprasad as court poet, granting him enough land to support his family. It was then that Ramprasad delved more deeply into his spiritual practices, often fasting and sitting in a nearby meditation garden. He began to have visions of Mother Kali. His songs and quiet charisma started to draw devotees. Ramprasad and his wife had 4 children. Finances continued to be a challenge for Ramprasad and his family. His intense focus on spiritual practices meant he neglected the day-to-day maintenance of his land, yet the family continued to get by. Ramprasad's poetry to the mother goddess Kali is playful, petulant, blissful, rageful, and sometimes shocking. His poetry shows the whole tempestuous relationship between a child and his mother, between the soul and God. He doesn't just show one face to the Divine Mother, he doesn't just pretend to be the good little boy. He communicates everything to her nakedly. And, in doing so, he achieves a profound intimacy with the divine. Ramprasad created a new compositional form that combined the Bengali folk style of bal music with classical melodies and kirtan. This new form took root in Bengali culture for the next 150 years, with hundreds of poet-composers combining folk and raga-based melodies, and bringing together styles of music that included classical, semi-classical, and folk. His poetic style has been described as sweet, familiar and unsophisticated, though his lyrics were sung in classical style rather than a folk style. His songs are sung today, with a popular collection, Ramprasadi Sangeet, Songs of Ramprasad. Another popular story is told of Ramprasad's vision of goddess Annapurna of Varanasi. Ramprasad was on his way to the river for his daily ritual bath when a beautiful young woman stopped him, asking if she could hear him sing a devotional song to the Divine Mother. Ramprasad requested her to wait, since it was getting late for his noon worship. When he returned, he couldn't find her, and began to think that it may have been the play of Divine Mother. Sitting down to meditate, he was surrounded by a radiant light and heard a female voice saying, "I am Annapurna. I came all the way from Varanasi to hear your songs but, alas, I had to leave disappointed." Ramprasad was angry with himself and immediately left for Varanasi to find Mother Annapurna and sing for her. After walking many miles, he reached Triveni, where he took rest under a tree on the bank of the Ganges. Here he reportedly received another vision, saw the same mystical light, and heard the mother's voice saying, "Stay here and sing for me. Varanasi is not the only place where I live, I pervade the whole universe. Will that day come to me, Ma? Will that day come to me, Ma?" When saying, "Mother dear, my eyes will flow tears, Widsom's lotus will blossom forth, darkness will steal away, heart's lotus will blossom forth, darkness will steal away, steal away, steal away. Steal away, Ma, steal away." 1,000 Vedas do declare Divine Mothers everywhere. Ramprasad says, "Divine Mother everywhere stays, blind eyes, see the Ma, hiding everywhere." Ramprasad Sen was born in a small village north of Kolkata around the year 1720. His bhakti song poems, called Ramprasadi, are sung throughout Bengal to this day. At heart a simple lover of God, he was also a practitioner of an esoteric Tantra yoga path of Divine Mother worship. One biographer of Paramhansa Yogananda said that as a teenager, Yogananda often carried a book of Ramprasad's songs around with him. Yogananda introduced the West to Ramprasad with this popular chant. Will that day oh come to me, Ma? Will that day oh come to me, Ma? When saying, Mother dear my eyes will flow tears. When saying Mother dear my eyes will flow tears. Wisdom's lotus will blossom forth, darkness will steal away, heart's lotus will blossom forth, darkness will steal away, steal away, steal away. Steal away Ma, steal away, steal away, steal away, steal away Ma, steal away. 1,000 Vedas do declare divine mothers everywhere. 1,000 Vedas do declare divine mothers everywhere. Sri Ramprasad says divine mother everywhere stays. Sri Ramprasad says divine mother everywhere stays. Blind eyes, see the Ma hiding everywhere. Blind eyes, see the Ma hiding everywhere. Ramprasad's songs combined folk melodies with classical ragas, forming a new type of music that became popular in Bengal. His bhakti poetry was influential in the bhakti movement in Bengal in the 18th century, taking an approach to the Divine Mother as Kali that was at times intimate and personal, at other times teasing and scolding, and sometimes deeply esoteric and symbolic. Many stories are told of his life. As a young man, in order to support his family, he moved from his village to the city of Kolkata to work as an accountant. His co-workers discovered that he was writing poems to Divine Mother in the margins of his account books and told their employer, hoping to have their inefficient co-worker fired. The wealthy landowner who employed Ramprasad was so taken by his poems that he insisted on supporting Ramprasad as a full-time poet instead of as an accountant. Back at his village home one day, he was building a fence and called his daughter to help him. While working, she asked him, "Why do you always sing to Divine Mother if she never comes?" and then mischievously left him before he could reply. Later he learned that his daughter had been at a distant village all day long, and realized that his helper was Divine Mother herself, lovingly teasing Ramprasad. One day he was walking to the river to perform his morning rituals. On his way there, a radiant young woman asked him if he would sing some of his songs for her. He told her that his religious duties called and so he must go to the river, but he would sing to her on the way back. When he returned, she was gone. He realized that it must have been Divine Mother herself. This was confirmed when he was surrounded by a radiant light and heard her voice saying, "I am Annapurna. I came all the way from Varanasi to hear your songs, but alas, I had to leave disappointed." Ramprasad was very fond of taking part in Kali Puja on the night of Diwali, the festival of lights. On one Kali Puja night, he performed the puja and sang throughout the night. In the morning, Ramprasad carried the jar of Divine Mother's sanctified water on his head to the Ganges. He was followed by the devotees, who carried the clay image of Kali Ma to be immersed in the Ganges after the night of worship. Ramprasad waded into the holy river, until the water was neck-deep, all the while singing for Kali. As Kali's image was immersed, Ramprasad left his body. This was believed to be around 1775. Ramprasad's literary works include Vidyasundar, or Kalika Mangala, Kali Kirtana, the fragmentary Krishna Kirtana, and Shakti Jiti. Kali Kirtana is a collection of lyrics and narrative poetry describing the early life of Uma. Krishna Kirtana is an incomplete book of poems and songs to Krishna. The complete collection is yet to be discovered. Vidyasundara Kavya is written in a narrative style that was already popular in Bengali literature, telling the traditional love story of Vidya and Sundara, children of kings who are aided by Kali in meeting, falling in love, and marrying. Shakti Jiti is Ramprasad's well-known and respected work, in which he expresses his deepest feelings and love for Kali. In Shakti Jiti, he shares the most intimate relationship with Kali Ma, a child who can both love and quarrel with his mother over the inequities of human birth. "Oh mother, who really knows your magic? You're a crazy girl driving us all crazy with these tricks. No one knows anyone else in a world of your illusions. Kali's tricks are so deft, we act on what we see. And what's suffering, all because of a crazy girl. Who knows what she truly is?" Ramprasad says, if she decides to be kind, this misery will pass. Raja Krishan Chandra of Nadia, a landlord under Nawab Sirajuddaula of Bengal, heard Ramprasad's hymns. Being an ardent devotee of Kali Ma, he appointed Ramprasad as his court poet. Ramprasad rarely attended the Maharaja's court and would spend his time in sadhana and worship of Kali Ma instead. Krishna Chandra became Ramprasad's benefactor, giving him 100 acres of tax-free land. Ramprasad, in return, dedicated his book Vidyasundar to the Maharaja. Krishna Chandra also gave Ramprasad the title Kavaranyana. During the Maharaja's last years, Ramprasad stayed beside him, singing hymns of Kali Ma. Ramprasad's mysticism was recognized by Sufis and Nawab Sirajuddaula. Ramprasad is said to have visited the court of the Nawab at the Nawab's fervent request. He would reportedly spend hours meditating on a Pankamandiyasana, an altar inside which are interred 5 skulls that of a snake, frog, rabbit, fox, and man. He had a vision of Kali Ma in her form of a Dayashakshi Mahamaya. Feeling chagrin for ignoring the much higher religious duty of singing to Divine Mother, he immediately embarked for Varanasi. Taking rest by the Ganges on the way there at Triveni, he found himself suddenly surrounded by a divine light. He then heard the Divine Mother playing with him again, this time telling him, "Stay here and sing for me. Varanasi is not the only place where I live, I pervade the whole universe." Sadhak Ramprasad Sen was a great devotee of Kali Ma in 18th century Bengal. He underwent intense spiritual practices and had the vision of the Divine Mother. He composed many songs in praise of the Mother. He became well known for his devotional songs, on which are quite popular to this day. His literary works include Vidyasundar Kali Kirtana, Krishna Kirtana and Shakti Jiti. Ramprasad was born in Halasahar, a village on the banks of the Ganges about 35 miles north of Kolkata, into a tantric Beja Brahmin family around the year 1718 or 1723. He was sent to a Sanskrit school, where he learned Sanskrit grammar, literature, Persian and Hindi. As a youth, he had a talent for poetry and learning new languages. Ramprasad showed no interest in practical pursuits. As he grew up, his spiritual inclinations caused a great deal of anxiety to his parents. Believing that marriage would make Ramprasad more responsible, his parents got him married when he was 22 years old. In keeping with the family custom, the newlywed couple was initiated by the family's spiritual teacher Madhavacharya. During initiation, when the guru whispered the mantra to him, Ramprasad became consumed by intense longing for the goddess Kali. Ramprasad later became the disciple of Krishnananda Agamavajisha, a tantric yogi and scholar. Agamavajisha was a well-known devotee of Kali Ma and the author of the Bengali book Tantrasara. Agamavajisha instructed Ramprasad in tantric sadhanas and worship of Kali Ma. Ramprasad devoted most of his time to sadhana. Forced by poverty, he moved to Kolkata and worked as an accountant for a monthly salary of 30 rupees. During his employment, Ramprasad would write devotional songs to Kali Ma. His fellow employees were appalled to see Ramprasad write poems in his account book, and reported him to their employer. The employer, upon reading Ramprasad's work, was moved by his piety and literary skill. Instead of dismissing Ramprasad from work, he asked him to return to his village and compose songs to Kali Ma while continuing to pay his salary. After returning to his village, Ramprasad spent most of his time in sadhana, meditation and prayer. He performed several esoteric sadhanas, including standing neck-deep in the river Ganges, singing songs to Kali. Ramprasad would regularly practice his sadhana in a Panchavatiya grove with 5 trees: banyan, bael, amalaki, ashoka, and peepal, all regarded as holy in tantric tradition. Ramprasad Sen is regarded as one of the notable figures of the Bhakti movement in Bengal during the 18th century. He is credited with popularizing the Bhakti Shakta tradition and Shyama Sangeet, devotional songs to Kali Ma. Ramprasad was the first Shakta poet to address Kali Ma with such intimate devotion, and to sing of her as a tender, loving mother, or even as a little girl. After him, a school of Shakta poets continued the Kali Bhakti tradition. In Bengal, popular stories and legends are told of Ramprasad. One of the most well-known stories is about a radiant girl who helped him one day. Ramprasad was repairing a fence with the assistance of his daughter, who left shortly thereafter. Soon a radiant girl, whom he didn't recognize, came to help him. After finishing the task, she vanished. According to the story, Ramprasad then realized that she was a manifestation of Kali Ma. "I drink no ordinary wine, but wine of everlasting bliss. As I repeat my mother Kali's name, it so intoxicates my mind that people take me to be drunk. First my guru gives molasses for the making of the wine, my longing is the ferment to transform it. Knowledge, the maker of the wine, prepares it for me then, and when it is done, my mind imbibes it from the bottle of the mantra, taking the mother's name to make it pure. Drink of this wine," says Ramprasad, "and the 4 fruits of life are yours."